I was just getting into that clip too. Just getting into it. Welcome to Square Town Talk. I'm your host, Mr. Square Town himself. And tonight we have the lovely, talented erotica author and model and so forth, Leigh Savage. What's going on, Leigh?
Hi, happy to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Leigh has done a lot. She's a very, very multi-talented novelist and author. First time I've ever had anyone on the show that had anything to do with erotica, so I'm very interested about this interview. So yeah, thanks again, Leigh, for having us. I appreciate it. I know it can be busy. I know you have a lot going on, so thanks. Thanks again.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. So what we don't know about Leigh, let me tell you a little about Leigh Savage, Indie Romance Convention Reader's Choice Award nominee in 2013. Leigh Savage was for Author of the Year, and then an Angel of Death nominee for the Best First Indie Book, Best Indie Erotic Romance, and Best Indie Book Cover. Then it says Shadow of My Past for nominee for the Best Indie Paranormal Romance and Best Indie Erotic Romance. And then she had another AMR Best Erotic Author in 2020 and 2023. So she lives in St. Louis. She's known for the erotica for true was that Truly Wicked with over
Truly wicked.
20. Is that what? Yeah, Truly Wicked with over
hmm
20 titles currently released. Her novel Bound by Blood is set to start recording as an audiobook with voices done by actors to raise funds to turn the short story horror collection into a TV series. She recently gained new fans from modeling. She started acting, tried her hand in photography. She's accomplished all these things with the support of her husband, but since his passing, she has leaned on the support of the St. Louis Writers Guild, friends, and family to help in his absence. And she said, growing up, she loved to escape in a world of stories that her father would write just for her. And then it says, it wasn't any wonder that as she got older, she too would pick up a pen and start writing. So she has a lot of social media stuff going on, but we'll get to that closer to the end of the interview. But like I said, Leigh, thanks again. And just tell us how you got started into the erotica form of writing.
So it started out very innocent romance. And then as I kept progressing into romance, I somehow kept getting more vivid in my descriptions. And
Mm,
then it became erotic romance. And then it just finally became erotica. And then I started
hmm
dabbling in dark horror erotica, which is a very more limited genre, but
hmm
it's what helped win me some of my awards and more notice. My Seven
Yeah,
Deadly Sins series was what got AMR. Like she
yeah,
like became a huge fan of that series, and I was on like interviewed by her, and then I won the award for
hmm
that year that those books came out. So
wow.
kind of just kind of
Yeah, it went from there, huh?
developing.
Yeah. So, growing up in St. Louis, tell us about your upbringing. Tell us, like what made you want to be a writer.
Well, grew up in Poplar Bluff, but came to St. Louis as an adult. My dad wrote horror when I was growing up.
Mm,
And I started writing in high school, mostly poetry and tragic romance. In fact, the stories that are in the Bound by Blood book
hmm
is the book that my dad and myself wrote when I was in high
Oh,
school
nice.
together, the short stories. And that's what we're trying to get out and made into a TV series. He's no longer with us. My dad isn't. He always struggled at trying to get published. He passed before the indie author thing became a real thing. It was all vanity press. There was no, self-publishing or publishing on demand where you could just
Yeah.
do it, or you could do like ebooks. So
Hmm.
he really missed out. He didn't get to do that. So I'm trying to keep a part of his legacy alive. In fact, my name that I took, he was Cain Savage. So when I decided
Oh,
to take up my persona, I became Leigh Savage. Leigh for the
wow.
romance,
Hmm.
Savage for the dark side that my writing sometimes tends to take.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So what? Now give us like an explanation of what actual writing erotica means to you.
So writing erotic, it varies from romance, because romance you're going to have more plot and story with the
Hmm.
characters, and the sex scenes are just kind of secondary, really. When it comes
Hmm.
to erotic, the people want the sex scenes. So you're expected to kind of get into the story really quickly. They still want a little
Hmm.
bit of story,
Yeah.
but they want you to get into it more quickly. You got to be much more vivid in how you're writing the detail of the scenes.
Hmm.
And usually you're doing anywhere from 3+ scenes in a book to keep your readers happy. Because if you do two less, they're not going to be happy. You can do more,
Yeah.
but if you do less, they're not going to be happy.
Right. They'll be like, this ain't erotica. This is just a
Standard to
story.
have at least 3 scenes in a book.
Mm. Okay. Okay. And now, do you have a mixture of erotica and horror in one book?
Yes, I
Okay.
do.
And what? Yeah. What would that be called? Like, what type of book would that be called?
Typically that's called dark erotic.
Okay.
So my Red, which is a retelling of Red Riding Hood in an adult
Mm.
style erotica, that is a dark erotica. It has horror elements to it, but it's
Hmm.
primarily erotic. And then, of course, my Seven Deadly Sins series is also in that dark erotic where it's horror, because it also has torture and it's demons, and
Mm.
so there's manipulation and not the most, I'd say, healthy relationships in that book,
Yeah.
but it's horror erotica, and people like it.
Right. Right. So, is there like a following in like the world for like that type of theme in writing?
Yes, very much so.
Hmm.
It's actually a little bit easier to get noticed in the dark horror erotic line because there's not as many authors doing it.
Hmm.
Now, at the same time, you don't have as many, you have a decent fan base, but it is more limited. There are readers that aren't going to pick that up because
Right.
they don't want to read the dark stuff. They want the happy, they want the nice kind of
Hmm.
almost romantic erotica, which I try to put some of those out a little bit here and there too.
Yeah.
It's just that my writing tends to reflect kind of what's going on in my life. So as things got worse in my life, my writing
Hmm.
tended to also get darker.
Nice. Nice. It made it a lot easier for you to write just based off the experiences that you were having, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a healthy way to kind of let those emotions out and
Hmm.
not let it drag me down.
Yeah. So, like writing your first book, regardless if it was erotica or horror, like, what was the process like to start, and like, what type of feedback did you get from that first book?
So, my first like full length book was Angel of Death, and I wrote that. Gosh, it's been so many years ago. It was before kids, and all that. I
Hmm.
remember being at Olive Garden waitressing, and
Mm.
like the idea would come to me, and I'd write it down like a chapter on a napkin, and
Wow.
when I get home, finish it. It was just, it was a weird process, but I didn't plan any of the book. I had a few characters picked out that were vampires. I just kind of had this character, Mika Shadow, that was originally I was supposed to play Vampire Masquerade game. So I created
Mm.
this profile for her. The group of friends never got together. So I created her own story. And that's how the book Angel of Death came about. I was like, I created this great character I want to use. And then I
Yeah.
wrote a book for it. I never planned on it being a series. So I didn't take notes or anything. And then when I wrote the book, all of a sudden I'm like writing into the next book and I'm like, oh, wait. this is going to be trouble.
Yeah, good trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and you got pretty good feedback on the first book and going
Yes.
into the series.
Yes. I did learn some things because like the first editor I hired for that book was a
Hmm.
content editor, not a line editor, and I needed a line editor. So I've had re-editing of that book done later. You
Hmm.
learn as you go, and then
Yeah.
eventually you learn just not to look back at those older books and just keep
Right. Right. Just keep it
because
moving.
otherwise all you'll do is keep redoing old projects over and
Yeah.
over. So at some point you just got to say I'm growing from where I started and I
Hmm.
learned.
That's some good advice, just right off the
Mhm.
bat. So, what was the difference, like going forward into your next book or into the series? What's the difference between having a line editor and a content editor?
So a content editor looks more for like gaps in the storyline, to
Okay.
make sure your actual story flows well, make sure you don't have any like big laws in the story, and
Hmm.
make sure you don't have any like errors in the story. So say you killed off this character and then you brought him back, but you didn't explain how the character came back. They would point that
Ah,
out like, hey, you might want to explain how this character who was dead suddenly shows back up. Or if this is a flashback,
right.
you want to put something. That's what a content editor does. Your line editor is the one that
Mhm.
looks at spelling and grammar and just kind of the flow of the sentences and making sure you're not doing run on sentences, which I'm bad about doing.
Yeah, we all are. Yeah.
Especially as I write something and I'm like getting excited. I just like,
Mhm. To get it out there. Yeah, you want to get it
yeah,
out there before you forget.
right. And then when you're editing your own stuff, if
Hmm.
there is there, you don't always see the difference between them because you see what it's supposed to be. You don't
Yeah.
see those like little mistakes that even Word don't pick up on. Some it's gotten better. Word and Grammarly together can pick up some of that now. But when I
Hmm.
was first writing, like 2003 was when I really started self-publishing.
Hmm.
Around that time, the editing software wouldn't pick up that you had the wrong bear. Like bear and
Right.
bear, it didn't
It's
know. It
different.
was like the word
Yeah.
was spelled correctly. It didn't care if you had the wrong one.
Wow.
So those type of things, it's gotten
Hmm.
better now. But I mean, those
Yeah.
still happen from
Right.
time to time. The software is not perfect, and me editing my own stuff, I'm not going to see that stuff.
Right.
I just know I'm not. I can help edit someone else's stuff, but I can't edit my own work.
Yeah. Because you're scanning through yours because you already kind of know the feel of it. So you're not really looking at it
Yeah.
like you're supposed to. Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Now, if I
Um,
will set it aside, wait
mhm.
longer, and then go back to it and read it again, or if I'll read it out loud, I might pick up on a bit more things. But I tend to like want to push it out really quickly and start the next project because I
Yeah,
always have like 4 or 5 projects that I've been waiting to do, and it's just whichever one hits my brain the hardest is the one I work on next.
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. So, what would you say? Okay, so you've done 20 books. Is that what it
Over
said?
20 now.
Over 20 books. What's
Mhm.
the estimate pages of your books? Like, what would you say per book? Like, what's enough when it comes down to finishing it?
Um, it really varies for each storyline, but I try to do novella length now, which is anywhere from 60 to maybe 100 something pages. I find that people's attention for longer books don't
Mm-hmm.
hold as much anymore. They like the
Mm,
short reads that they can go in, read in 1 to 2 days, and then just be done with it and I found this in myself, like our lives are so much busier now. If
yeah.
I put a book aside and have a bookmark in it, or I've bookmarked it on the reading app, and I come back to it 2 weeks later, now I've
Hmm.
forgotten everything and I have to reread. So
Yep.
those shorter
Yep.
books that I can just read in one setting, that's where I've tried to make more of my books kind of you can sit and read it in 1 to 2 sittings. That way you don't end up forgetting everything you read.
Yeah, you're right. That makes a lot. That's just like a TV series or something. You
Mhm.
you watch the whole series And then you go to the next series maybe in 6 months, and you got to have that recap. If you don't have
Yep,
that recap, you
gotta
can
have the
totally
recap.
forget what you missed. And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. So going into the Angel series,
Mhm.
like, is this the one that you're trying to build into a TV series?
The Bound by Blood series is the one we're trying to get into a TV series. Angel of Death, there was talks for a little bit of trying to make an indie movie from it. That's kind
Hmm.
of fallen through. Maybe at some point it'll get picked back up again as a
Hmm.
concept. But right now, the Bound by Blood is the most promising. The Jonathan Bridges has been working on trying to get actors together. We'll do the audiobooks. From the audiobook sales, we'll use the revenue from that to try to get a pilot going. Once we get the
Mm.
pilot going, hopefully then we can get some backers behind the project and start actually,
Yeah.
moving forward with filming. We're wanting to try to think of it as the combo of Tales of the Crypt meets a sexy red Elvira telling
Okay,
horror stories.
okay. I was
That's
just
kind of
about to
what we're
ask you to
going for with
give us
our
a little.
vibe.
Yeah, I was
Um,
just gonna ask you to give us some insight on what the Bound by Blood is about. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So I would be the hostess, and I would be introducing the stories that would be happening, kind of like in Tales of the Crypt and Elvira,
Yeah.
except
Uh-huh.
that these stories are a bit more horror based, with some of them being kind of more tragic romance, and we'll blend those in. And try to keep them kind of short, like 30-minute episodes or whatever, like for the TV
Uh,
series. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe we're wanting to go for, is kind of a blend between Tales of the Crypt and Sexy Elvira, just in red
yeah.
and
Yeah, sexy red Elvira.
Mhm.
Yeah. So tell us how it's been. Like, I know you said you had a little bit of trouble of getting like some positive feedback on the movie for the Angel series. How hard is it to try to convert a book into a movie or a TV series?
It's difficult. I mean, I guess if you know the right people, it can just, some people get lucky and it just happens.
Hmm.
But there's first you got to find someone that wants your book. Then there's the transferring it into a script format and being okay with them making the changes they need to make it translate for video.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
book and video language is very different. So you got to kind of be okay with that.
Mm,
Then you got to have financing to get anything going. Even with
mhm.
a lot of the indie stuff, doing low budget and getting actors or actresses that said like they'll help start, for free just to kind of get a pilot going so you can try to get revenue. That only you still need locations, you need props, you need costumes, that all takes money.
Yeah.
And getting people to back it before you have anything to show is very difficult to do.
Mhm.
So that's why we're trying to do this, do the audiobooks to generate income, to use that to kick off the pilot. And we'll
Yeah.
see how that goes. There was a couple years ago, I think it was in the bio, maybe I
Mhm.
updated it at one point. We were set to start filming the first episode for Bound by Blood, and we had
Mhm.
like a park, like a campground already picked out. Last minute, the campground came back and said, you got to have $1 million liability policy to film here.
Oh, heck
And
no.
I was like, we can't afford that. Like, and
Yeah, that's
so, and everyone was willing to sign waivers. They didn't care. What it was is they found out it was horror, and they didn't want it
uh,
filmed at their campground, even though we said, if you don't want your name shown, we won't show your name. If you want the publicity, we will keep the campground name the same. It was
yeah,
up to them, and they still wouldn't let us. So that was their way of, instead of just
pushing
saying
y'all
no,
out. Yeah.
they were like, you got to have $1 million liability policy to can't, film here in case anything happens.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because
Okay.
then they would have said you would have got that, and they would have said something else. Oh, well, you need to.
Hmm.
Everything's a technicality, and having that support, like you said, is very important. With in this day and age, like you kind of touched on, our attention span is a lot shorter.
Yes.
So, are you preferring the audiobooks over regular hard book? I mean, what do they call that, hard right? What is it called?
I do not. Myself, I'm not a big audio. I have two of my books converted into audiobooks right now. They do okay. It's a big investment
Yeah.
to typically get them done.
Hmm.
I haven't seen a big enough return to start doing more. The only one I'm wanting to do audiobook for next is my book Treasured. And that's my story about myself. So it's an,
Okay.
nonfiction book, and I would be
Hmm.
narrating it. So
Oh.
that is the next one I want to get made to audio. With the Bound
Hmm.
by Blood, Jonathan Bridges is taking care of all that. He's gonna set up the actors. He's gonna record it, so it's not like, and he's gonna take care of all that, so I don't have to worry about it. So
Right.
um, with the other
So.
ones, I would have to take care of. I would have to find someone to act them out and hire them. He said he might try his hand at one of my other books, and we might work out something on that, but we'll see
Hmm.
how it goes. It said right
So
now, I haven't seen a huge investment return on audiobooks. Like the ebooks is what sells the best right now.
ebooks,
So yeah,
really?
the
Oh, like the
ebook.
Kindles and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your character. Well, not your character, but Treasure. Tell us about that, and then I want to know what has been your favorite character in your books so
Okay.
far.
So, Treasured is my story about healing after my husband passed away, and
Hmm.
then coming to terms with realizing I was in a abusive relationship.
Wow.
He was very controlling. He manipulated me into doing things that I wasn't really okay with, but I was like, I wanted to make him happy.
Yeah.
And he was
Yeah.
a very negative person. But in the book, I try not to focus too much on the abuse side of things. I give examples of some of the stuff that he did so others can learn from that. But it's
Hmm.
more on the process of healing because during that
Yeah.
time, I met someone new and we
Hmm.
just clicked. And he helped me realize without even him trying, but
Hmm.
he was treating me so good. I was like in shock because I'm like, this is how someone's supposed to treat you? Like getting called
Right.
beautiful and sexy and complimenting me on how smart I am all the time instead of putting me down. I was like, oh wow, this is what healthy is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I just met this guy on a plane randomly and we clicked and he like is in St. Charles area. He
Yeah.
works a
Which is not
lot,
too
but
far.
we
Hmm.
started going out and we're on 6 months now of seeing each other.
Nice. Nice.
But that whole meeting spurred the book and my healing process of
Wow.
trying to come to terms and trying. I got very angry at myself for a little bit because I was like,
Mhm.
how did I let him do this to me? And how did I not recognize this? Why didn't I speak out about it to anyone? Why did I
Yeah.
hide it for him all these years? We were married for a really long time and I just hid the pain, buried it
Mm.
down, pretended to be happy, and pretended
Mhm.
that, yes, he was very supportive. And he was supportive at times, but that
Yeah.
supportive was always with a cost. If
Uh,
he got his way, or if he pushed things too far and he needed to make up, then he was overly attentive, overly nice. And then
right.
when things would start to go, he would withdraw that attention, like if he didn't get his way. Like,
Yeah.
even with the modeling, I was starting to gain traction for the modeling
Mhm.
and I was starting to get paid shoots and everything. And our agreement when I started modeling and doing erotic modeling was that he needed to be present.
Mm.
And
Okay.
so I was fine with that. And I found photographers who was fine with that. But then all of a sudden he was like, I'm not going anymore. So you're
So does
just
that
basically
mean that? Yeah.
pulling out. And he would just be like, well, I'll take your pictures for you. And he
Mm.
was a decent photographer and he did a lot of pictures for me and he did a lot of photo editing, but
Mhm.
that doesn't get me the paid shoots.
Right. Correct. Yeah. Exactly.
So, yeah, so every time I would almost get like start really gaining traction for success, he would pull away
Mm.
some of that attention because I was getting too much attention.
Yeah. And you probably felt guilty every time he pulled away, as well.
And then I would back down and I would lose traction and it
Yeah.
was like a roller coaster effect.
Mhm. And that brings me to a point that I wasn't going to ask this, but now that you kind of brought it up, how important is it to have a spouse that supports you in what you do, in anything that you do? Like, I've been in situations throughout my life where I didn't get the support I needed to go further, to be more successful in what I wanted to do. That means a lot for a man. So for a woman, how important is that to have that support from your mate?
It's very important because if you don't have it, then everything in your home life starts to feel off and they make you feel guilty for
Yeah,
not giving them enough attention, or that you're spending too much time working on this instead of being at home. So you really need that support in your life, or you just got to be single. I mean,
yeah,
you have to figure it out. The guy I'm with now, he's very supportive of me continuing to do the modeling. If I want to
hmm
get back into acting, the books I'm writing, he's encouraging me to try to write more.
yeah,
I've kind of put off writing a little bit. I'm writing poetry, but I haven't really written on my book project that's in progress, mainly
hmm
because my work life has been very hectic and I let work kind of take all the creativity out of me
yeah,
sometimes.
yeah.
And he was like, you got to find a way to balance that back in. So
hmm
having that support is very important.
Right. Okay. Couple more questions. One would be based off of what we just talked about. Your spouse that passed away. When did you know that it was okay to move forward with someone else?
Oh, it wasn't that long. So he passed in August of last year,
hmm
and I met this guy of January of this year.
Okay.
So really wasn't that long
hmm
of a time gap. But part of that was even before I met this guy. My friend had took me out that September
hmm
to celebrate because it was my first wedding anniversary. Not being married,
Yeah.
and she took me out to the place we used to go, and she was like, I'm so sorry this happened. And I looked at her, I go, you know what, I did a lot for him. He was sick a lot, I took care of him a lot. I
hmm
said, I just know there's someone out there for me I'm going to meet, and this time around it's going to be more even. It's not going to be
Yeah.
me doing everything for them and
Right.
sacrificing myself for them.
Mm.
And I told her that, and she goes, oh, I got chills up and down my
I
arms
just
when
got
you
you.
said
That's why
that.
I was like, ooh, okay.
And I just knew it in my heart that like someone was out there for me that I was going to meet, and it was just going to be, there. And
Yeah.
when I met him, like I said, I wasn't looking. I
I'm glad you
wasn't
said
looking
that.
at
I'm
all.
glad you said that.
I wasn't looking. I will say that night before I met him, I did cry and hug a pillow, and it's in the book Treasured. I just literally like pray to the universe. I'm like, I'm ready. If
Yeah.
there's that person out there for me, I'm ready for them at this point. I'm open to the possibility, is what I put out
Yeah.
there. And then that next day, I'm sitting there on the plane trying to listen to music and tune everything out.
hmm
And he's talking, and I'm nervous, and he notices I'm nervous because they're de-icing the plane.
Uh,
I haven't flown that much, and I've never had a
right.
plane de-iced before you like go up. I'm like, this is
Yeah.
weird. And he's like, it's okay. And he's just started comforting me, and then we started talking, and then before I knew it, the plane landed, and he was like, let's
Wow.
go out to dinner. And I'm like, okay.
That's what I'm talking about.
And
That's yeah.
yeah,
I
just
tell
meeting it.
people all the time. Yeah, I tell people all the time. Just don't go looking. It'll come.
Yeah,
And that's with everything. That's not just relationship. That's just life in general. You go looking, it's gonna make it a lot harder for you to
yeah.
find it. It's a lot easier when you don't go looking.
And when we went on that first date, it didn't feel off. It didn't feel weird. It just felt it felt like I'd known him longer than like, it wasn't like we just met. It felt like
Right.
I was seeing someone that was a friend. Like our
Yeah.
conversation just went so easy and everything. So
Yeah.
It was just a real connection really quick. And
Right. And he
so
inspired you to write your next book, Treasure. That's what it's all about, man. I mean, success and support, that's what it's all about. So lastly, I would ask what's up next for you, and where can viewers find you at online if they want to reach out to Leigh Savage?
okay, so I'm working on a secret project with another writer.
Mm,
I can only say what we're doing is I'm writing the female character and he's writing the male character, and I'm writing a chapter and then he writes a chapter, and we're banging it back and forth from each other.
nice.
Very little plot was discussed on how it was going to go, and I don't want to give anything too away. And this is still kind of on the dark horror side of things. It was to try to help finish up some of my anger and stuff that I have, like healthy, get it out there. I've had a little bit harder time writing it now that I'm really happy.
You're right, yeah.
Place.
You gotta
So
look back
my
now. You
writing
gotta
has
look.
slowed down a little bit, but
Yeah.
I'll get there. I'll still finish the project. I'm finally doing day shift, so I'll be able to get that balance back out and try to get some writing back in. But people can find me. The easiest way is to do leisavagemedia.com. My official website will have all the links to Amazon, Facebook. I just went back on Instagram again. And if you go on Instagram, you can find me as Leigh Savage Media. You can search YouTube for Leigh Savage, and you'll see a couple of interview clips of me, some of the acting stuff I've done, little clips of me and those things, trailers and stuff like that. And then my book trailers. I don't do a whole lot of like my own content. I just kind of link to others, but I do playlists of music I listen to for certain books I write. So you can go in and listen to the music while you read the book and see what helped inspire the mood of the book as well on YouTube. So that is how I use that. And then I'm on OnlyFans too for Leigh Savage, so you can see my erotic modeling on there.
Reach out, y'all. Reach out.
Newer stuff is on there.
Okay.
So, and hopefully as things pick up, I'll be able to start working with photographers and get more new stuff created besides doing my selfie stuff.
All right. And you said Bound by Blood is the one that you guys are working on, possibly moving into a TV series, correct?
Yes. Okay. That is the first one we are trying to get, mainly because it's short stories, so it's easier to condense down to little segments. We'll see if someone picks up Angel of Death again. That one's more of a movie type. I think kind of like a cross between Blade and Underworld.
See, now you got me interested. I gotta dig in now. You got a lot of dark horror and erotica stuff that I ain't really never touched before. Yeah, I'm most definitely gonna check out and go to your page and start reading some of these. But yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity tonight. I know how busy it could be. Now you got this new man. He's probably waiting for you to get off this interview as well. You still got some writing to do. You got so many things coming in different directions, but we appreciate it tonight.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and I wanted to also say that this will be rebroadcasted on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So the people that didn't get the opportunity to watch it live will have an opportunity to watch it on those other platforms. So, yeah, with that being said, thanks again, Leigh. I will be reaching out to you because I got a couple of ideas myself and I need some advice. So yeah, we'll talk soon, Leigh. Have a good night. And thank you, everybody who tuned in and who will be tuning in. Continue to watch the podcast series, Women in Entertainment. It's been going on since May. We've had a great time. It's going to continue. But thanks again, Leigh. And thanks, everybody else, for tuning in. And we will holler later.
Bye.
Have a good one, y'all.
You too.
Like a lonely road when all alone. Just stay focused, stay in your zone, gotta keep control. You can't love nobody else if you can't love yourself. To change your future, be willing, first we must change ourselves. I'm on a positive vibe. I got a positive vibe. Give a positive vibe. From this positive